Today's guest on Brio TV, the podcast, has sold more duct tape than any other guest. Plus, he looks great in plaid and always knows how to keep his stick on the ice. Join me today for a great conversation with a Canadian Comedy Hall of Famer. Well, hi again. And as listeners here know, I admire anyone who can get a show on the air in this country with all the funding and network scheduling hurdles. Cranking out actual CanCon is one of the 7 tasks of Hercules. My guest today created a character in a series that he exported all over Canada and the States in a series he held together with duct tape and talent for 16 consecutive seasons. And that was after creating several other shows. This month, he's being honored in Hamilton, Ontario, a place where he created this series, by being inducted into the Canadian Comedy Hall of Fame. Please give a warm Possum Lodge welcome to my hero, Red Green himself, Steve Smith.
I was going to say, the last time I saw you was, I think, got to be 30 years ago at our house in Hamilton, I think.
Yeah, a long time ago. My God, over the years. I mean, I was working for TV Guide, and I think the first time I came to the Comedy Mill and met everybody. So that was a few years ago for sure. But
late 80s.
Yeah, so it was always a thrill and a pleasure. And while we're waiting, I had time to catch up on my reading. I'm moving, so I haven't moved all the books off the shelf. This is a very funny book, Red Green's Beginner's Guide to Women. I just love that they actually Doubleday put duct tape on the spine. Honestly, a very funny book. I laughed out loud the first time I read it, and I can't believe it's been available for 10 years. People need to grab that copy if they can. It's a funny read.
No, thank you, Bill.
Steve, listen, we're talking because, we were due to talk, and I'm glad we are. But you're being honored by the Canadian Comedy Hall of Fame. Did you even know there was a Canadian Comedy Hall of Fame, Steve?
No. There's a quick answer. Not a clue.
That makes you like most Canadians, but here it is. And now they're moving you in. They're honoring you as both a builder and a performer, which I think is really important. And you're going in at the same time as Marie Dressler, Steve.
I know, that's big, man.
Hey, she was the biggest star in Hollywood in 1930, 31 or so that's pretty good.
I think I was in grade 5 with her.
I'll just keep serving them up, okay?
Oh my gosh, yeah.
No, but other folks, Jim Carrey, the cast of SCTV, so they're catching up with some great comedy names, but congrats to you. I think this is so wonderful. And I think I've told you this before, but you're one of my heroes in TV Canada and Canadian television covering this industry. I know the miracle it is to get one show on the air. And, you did it, I think, outside the usual lanes, normally related to someone on the CRTC or the funding agencies. You did it it's like you joined the NHL and you hadn't even skated yet, So my hat's off to you because you created so much television and so much very funny television. And I think 300 episodes of the Red Green Show is astounding. I mean, I think that beats the Beachcombers, right? So,
well, it wasn't as funny as the Beachcombers.
Not every week, maybe. Okay. But
Bill, you say that stuff, but I read a book about branding is in the early 80s, and one of the questions in it was, is it better to be a big fish in a small pond or a small fish in a big pond? And the answer for them was be a big fish in a small pond and then increase the size of the pond. And that's exactly what was my approach to Canadian television. I mean, I was doing the show out of CHCH-TV in Hamilton.
Yeah.
not only did they not have a clue what I was doing, they didn't care. Apathy became my biggest asset. And I got to the CBC a little bit because the CBC wanted the show, but mainly because they wanted the audience. And so I was able to increase the size of the pond. That's how that worked out.
Well, not only that, but you jumped across the pond. You were on, I don't know, 100 PBS affiliates, and had quite an impact there. I used to love your pledge. PBS would have a pledge drive, and Red Green would go on. What was it you would urge viewers to do in terms of sending money?
Well, I say, if you like the show, send in a little bit of money, and if you don't like the show, send in a lot of money so they can afford to buy something better.
That is a brilliant line. I always
my favorite promo ever for the show was, watch the Red Green Show. When you've already wasted most of your life, what's another half hour?
Oh, that's the right approach. No, I think it's tremendous. Where did you find your funny bone? Were you from? Were your parents had a great sense of humor, or growing up? Where did your sense of humor come from?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't remember either one of my parents as being really funny or anything. Things always occurred to me that didn't occur to other people, and the normal things didn't occur to me. So it wasn't any conflict. And I had the same teacher for grades 6, 7, and 8 in public school, and she said nobody's allowed to speak out in class except him. And so I could say whatever I thought because it was funny, but it wasn't disruptive. I wasn't trying to destroy what she was doing. It made it more entertaining, and that was a huge thing. I look back at that. That was the first indication that maybe this is something I should pursue.
I think Jim Carrey has said that when he was in school around the same age, that the teacher finally said, "Look, we'll wait till Friday and you'll have the last 15 minutes." I'm not in that story. I'm trying to remember it, but it seems like wise words. Teachers realizing there was an opportunity there for you and for them. Where did you grow up? Where did you spend your growing up years?
I was in Toronto until I was maybe 13. Yeah, I went to first year of high school. Went to Royal York Collegiate, and I was 12 going to. I remember the first day because I had skipped, and my birthday's in December, so I was already sometimes 2 years younger. The guy in the locker beside me, he was a man. He was in my class, so he was 15. I was 12, and on the first day, he said to me, if I wanted to, I could kill you. And Bill, I didn't question it. I decided, what can I do so that he won't want to kill me? Well, I made him laugh. I spent a year making him laugh and saved my own life. Wow. Well,
eventually he could drive you to school, probably, I guess.
Yeah. We moved away at the end of grade 9. We moved to Brantford. So that was the end of that.
There you are. But almost to me, more important than even being funny is having such determination. Again, Canadian television, you really need to stick it out. And where did that come from, Steve?
I'm a very persistent person. I have a huge, massive ego that says I can figure out how something works and make it work to my advantage. So to quit on something is just such a defeat to me that I'd be lost for the rest of my life. So I just, whatever the heck it is, if it's a jigsaw puzzle or I'm fixing a car or whatever I'm doing, I believe in myself. I believe I can solve this thing if I just get a little more information or work a little bit harder. So that's what I'm stuck with.
Well, no, hats off to you. That's what it takes. Was Smith & Smith your first television venture?
Yeah, it was. My wife and I had like a touring duo. We were like the Canadian Sonny and Cher, and we just couldn't find anywhere to fit. We didn't really fit in a bar, although we did okay in some little Irish type. But this Hall of Fame ceremony is at what used to be called Hamilton Place, and that was really our first big break. We got to open for Al Martino.
Wow.
And, it had to be fall of '76, something like that, and in the audience, unbeknownst to us, was the general manager of CHCH, and that's what got us the pilot, and away we go.
Amazing. That's incredible.
Yeah.
And basically, so were you mainly a folk duo? What was the music you were singing, you and Morag, your wife, at the time?
She was the singer, but I was writing all the stuff, and I would do like satirical type things, or even original melodies. Remember that guy Mark Russell? I think his name was. He played the piano, and, and sing about politics. Well, it was a little bit like that. I played the guitar, and we'd sing things about traveling on an airline and then losing your bags, that kind of stuff, So
right.
Yeah, it was folk. I would say it was folk based, but the comedy was in there as well.
When you look at this Canadian Comedy Hall of Fame, they're honoring a few other people that have a Hamilton connection as well this year. Eugene Levy, of course.
Yeah.
Short, you. I think there might even be one other, but what is it about? Is something in the water in Hamilton? Something other than ore or minerals from smelting or something? What is it?
I think that there's a sense of oppression in Hamilton. It's the blue collar city, and even if you look across the world at some of the oppressed cultures, Scotland or Ireland or whatever, they have tremendous comedy in those. That's the way they deal with it. So I think it makes sense that. If you don't have everything that you think you should have, you kind of laugh about it rather than.
I think you're on
your brains out.
Yeah, no, you're on this. I grew up in Etobicoke. I always thought that's a far too comfortable place.
Yeah.
That's why I moved to Brampton. But anyway, now we're moving again. But listen, so are you going to be involved in the ceremonies? Are you coming up for the February festivities where they're honoring you?
Yeah, I am. I'm flying up, and I'm going to bring my kids and my grandkids. I got 6 grandchildren now, and so it's going to be just a great family celebration. I'm honored. Like I said at first, when I heard about it, I thought this can't be real and everything. And Jeff Lumby, who's a guy I'm still working with, he phoned me from France to tell me what a big deal this was. So I'm like, but if he's phoned me from France, I should probably go. He's going there too. So, and McKenna will be there. It's going to be a great. Graham Greene's coming. It's going to be good.
Oh, that's fantastic. Why is it France is always the first? They knew about Jerry Lewis and and Red Green.
We'll forgive them for Jerry.
Exactly. Who were your heroes in Canadian television or comedy when you were starting out? Were there people you thought, I want a career like that guy? Or
well, one of the inductees, Billy Van. I mean, that House of Frankenstein. I thought it was so good. I thought it was American.
Yeah, I was, I think, 25 before I figured out he played all those roles, right?
Oh yeah, and he would do it. They would let it roll all night. He'd do that, right through the night. It's just crazy stuff.
Yeah, and he had a career in the 60s. Nightcap, I think, was a sort of a late night comedy show.
Like Paul Soles. Paul
Soles, absolutely.
Dinah Christie.
Yes. Well, Party Game, right?
Party Game, Captain Jack Duffy.
Were you ever? I guess that was ran through the 70s. That was before.
That was before me.
Right. You could have been. You could have been on the couch with Captain Jack Duffy.
I could have been.
Yeah. Back with Canadian Comedy Hall of Fame inductee Steve Smith in just a moment. Well, time once again to check in with our friend Emily Gagne at Hollywood Suite. Emily, Happy New Year. What do you got for us now?
Well, Bill, we're blasting off into 2024 with genre fare. We're talking sci-fi, we're talking horror, we're talking the freakiest and the most fun movies you can think of. Everything from Beetlejuice to Blade, we've got on our channels this month.
Wow, Blade scares me. What's the freakiest sci-fi film you've got, though?
Sci-fi, I mean, we've got 2001: A Space Odyssey. I don't know if that's the freakiest, but it's a classic. We've got Close Encounters of the Third Kind. But I really think if you want something weird and wonderful, we have this film called 976 Evil, which is directed by Freddy Krueger himself, Robert Englund.
Well, that's the number, 976 Evil. You can find it on Hollywood Suite. Emily, thanks for the tip.
Thanks, Bill.
Well, did you know that it was June Carter Cash who wrote one of Johnny Cash's biggest hits, Ring of Fire? That's just one of the things you'll learn watching June, streaming this month on Paramount Plus. June shines a spotlight on the history of country music and the Carter and Cash families. The 5-time Grammy Award-winning singer, actor, and author has opened for Elvis, appeared on screen with Robert Duvall and Jane Seymour, and as mentioned, was a damn fine songwriter. Featuring interviews with the woman herself, the film also includes sit-downs with her family, admirers, and friends, including Dolly Parton, Reese Witherspoon, and Willie Nelson. And remember, there's a mountain of premium entertainment for audiences of all ages on Paramount Plus. And we're back with Steve. Well, okay, let's talk about, so you, after Smith & Smith, you do Me and Max, I think, with your family, with the kids.
Yeah.
And you then you do the Comedy Mill, which was a pretty ambitious show, more ambitious than the budget, probably.
Always.
But you had this flowering of this talent there that it was like a hothouse for Linda Cash and Peter Callahan.
Mag Ruffman,
Mag was very, very funny. And from that came the character of Red Green, right?
No, character of Red Green started on Smith & Smith.
Oh,
1978.
Wow. Really?
Yeah. I was making fun of Red Fisher. I would sit on a picnic table and just keep talking until I thought of something, and away we go.
Well, and Red Fisher, for those who may not know, is this guy for 20 years. He would go fishing and he'd have a celebrity pal, often Toronto Maple Leaf or something, and they would go.
Ted Williams was his buddy, too.
Ted Williams, my God. Awesome, Hall of Fame slugger. So get in a boat and it would be 16 millimeter film and then some commentary, which you spun into a lot of brilliant segments on Red Green.
And he wrote poems too, so that's why I had the poetry in the Red Green show. That was a salute to him as well.
So you were just hypnotized by that show. When you saw it, did you think there's something that's screaming for parody? Like, what was the connection?
Yeah, I mean, to me, he had the attitude that nothing would bore you, and I thought that was fascinating. So, and my approach to Smith & Smith was, it's 100% filler. So, whatever you want to do, just go ahead and do it. And the funny thing, Bill, was, I started that character, like I say, at 78. And by the time I developed it into the actual Red Green show and then had a live audience starting in season 3, I could feel the audience forcing this thing that started as a caricature into a character. When I said something or did something that in their minds Red Green would never say or do, you could feel it, and then I would adjust. So they really helped me create something that had a lot more legs than the initial satire.
My memory, when I interviewed you once, you said that when you started the Red Green show at CHCH, it was almost like something you had in your bag. It was handy. Let's go with this until I think of the big thing I'm going to do. Am I off base or? No,
you're right on the money, and it was a reaction to Comedy Mill, where Telefilm approached us to do something. You're the kind of talent we should be supporting. So that's what got us into that and got the funding and everything. And then they said, oh, by the way, you can't do anything that you've ever done before. It has to be totally unlike anything you've ever done before. So they wouldn't let us do what we had success with. That was because they were afraid. They were afraid broadcasters were just going to dip into the fund to just subsidize what they were going to do anyway. You know what I mean?
Right.
So that was not a happy experience for me. So I just wanted to let's bring it down to, let's just live off the grid for a little while. And Rick Green and I, who'd been writing together for, probably 18 years by then,
Wow.
thought, well, let's do something. It'll get 6 months. It'll get us through 6 months, and then we'll just find something else to do.
Amazing.
It's been a long 6 months.
It has been. Rick was one of the Frantics, of course, before that, and
Right.
Was in a lot of these black and white segments on the Red Green Show where he's trying crazy stuff in your commentary. I always enjoyed that part of it. It was kind of a throwback, like a slapsticky silent movie stuff, right?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And we found a piece of music. It was like National Film Board documentary music, perfect, so contrasting what was going on the screen. And when we shot those, I went to there was you're not going to believe this, an antique hairdressing salon. I don't know. They sold antiques and they would do your hair, and it was in Burlington, and they had a UMIG camera, the kind you wind up. So I bought the camera, 16 mil, and I bought the little reels of film. They were like 3-minute reels.
Yeah.
So I think when we did the first one, and then I went and had the film developed, it was 5 reels, and 3 of them were color and 2 of them were black and white. Well, what am I going to do with that? They're all part of the same thing. I'm not Ted Turner. I couldn't afford to colorize the black and white ones, so I just made them all black and white. And people say, "Oh, that's so brilliant that you did it."
So smart. Yeah, I know. I had an old Bolex 16 millimeter.
Oh, sure, same thing. Yeah.
My dad had an old camera, made home movies that way, and that's how I got into that. But you had to wait for it to be developed before you could edit it, right? And it's so hard to explain to people today when they can do all this on their phone.
On their phone,
right?
I know. And you do a take, and you think, "Did we get that?" Well, I think so. You can't look at it,
Right. Do you think, Steve, I mean, if you were starting out with this idea today, would it start out on TikTok, or, would you do it as a YouTube show? What do you think?
Well, the situation today is a double-edged sword. First of all, you have incredible access to the world that you never had. When I was coming on, there's a gatekeeper at every broadcaster, and some person who has failed in everything they've tried to produce. So now they're going to tell you what works.
Yeah. Just like telefilm saying, don't do what you've been doing and you're good at it. Right.
Yeah, right. So, yes, you have the access. The downside is there's so much noise out there, it's hard to get heard. Yeah. Like right now, we're having a lot of success in streaming, and we're developing an animated version of the Red Green Show.
Wow.
And when we launch, our huge advantage is that, I've got 600,000 followers on Facebook, and I've got an audience that they want to know what I'm doing now. So no matter how good or bad the show is, I have a head start because I came up through the normal system. Starting from scratch right now, I love the access, but it would be very hard to get seen.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. This animated show, is it? Are we going to hear Patrick McKenna on there? Is it the plan to bring the voices in from the Red Green Show?
Not him, but and we're great friends. But it's really funny. I was saying to him the other day, I created an old character that I would eventually grow into,
right?
And for him, we created a young character that he would eventually grow out of. So, he still shares in whatever we do. He owns a percentage of it just because that's the way we did things. And
nice.
So, yeah. But like Lumbee, he was our sewage septic sucking guy. He's in, and Callahan, Ranger Gord, he's in, and Bob Bainborough, and a bunch of new characters. Got like a 13-year-old kid, and we've got a couple of women in there. Kathy Greenwood doing the voices for that, and Ron Pardo's involved. And we started doing a podcast like 4 years ago, but I didn't want a normal podcast. I wanted a radio show. I wanted a 100% scripted. Characters coming in and all that. And so we've been doing that. And it's so far subscription based only. I didn't want any advertisers or sponsors. I just didn't want them. But that's about to change because we've got a company out of Kansas that's taken the whole over.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, it's cool.
So you've created more like an Allen's Alley kind of a show, radio show.
Right. Right. I'm doing it with my son Dave too, so he's kind of co-hosting with me. It's been a lot of fun.
That's wonderful. Good for you. That sounds really cool. I have to get caught up on that. Yeah. Now, the other folks that were on the Red Green Show, those 300 episodes, you had beyond your sort of core cast.
Right.
Some people just, I think, wasn't Don Herron came on as Charlie Farquharson once, didn't he?
Well, we had this segment where I wanted to make people honorary lodge members, and Charlie has always been one of my favorites. Well, Don Herron, absolutely brilliant man. So he came on, and it's a live audience, and you got to set up the next scene and everything. And between every scene, Don would just go out and start talking to the audience, and not as Charlie, just as Don, and just being hilarious. And she's like, that guy is so sharp. So I was a big fan of his. Yeah, we had a few on there, Gordon Pinsent and Graham Greene, and it was really a lot of fun.
After a while, people were just asking you to be on the show, right? I
was at the Geminis, and that's Graham Greene came over. I didn't even know him, and he said, "What do I have to do to get on your show?" And I said, "Well, I'm pretty sure you just did it."
He sure did. Now, how many networks was the Red Green Show on? It was a few, right?
Yeah, well, we started, on CH and then Canadian syndication, and then they had some financial difficulties and actually canceled the show, which was the greatest thing that ever happened to the show. It's their second season. They canceled the show, and I thought, okay, we thought this would be a 6-month thing. We've already outlived anyway, I go down. I had a post office box, and I go down there to pick up my mail, and it was like a miracle on 34th Street. I go in, and the guy say, "Oh yeah, I heard your mail." He hand me a handful of mail, and then I go out. As I got to the door, he said, "Oh no, wait a minute," and I go back with a huge box of mail. Boom! I got 1,000 letters a day from people saying, "Do whatever you have to do to keep this show on the air." And so that was pretty encouraging. So then we went to Bayton and YTV, because Bayton had bought CFPL out of London and had to do some production to satisfy the CRTC. And so we were in London for a year. And then the next year, we didn't have a home at all. We just produced on our own. I mortgaged my house, and oh my God, and we bought the time on Global and sold ads ourselves. Oh my God, that just about bankrupted me.
Wow.
And then season 5 and 6, Global picked up the show, and then season 7 we finally got. And every year we went to the CBC, every year for 6 years, and finally in the 7th year we got on. And I remember by then we had an audience, and I remember the live audience at CBC. The one guy asked me, he says, "How did you ever sell this show to a broadcaster?" I said, "I didn't. I sold you to an advertiser."
Wow, exactly. Yeah. Well, they're a little suspicious of shows which have a big audience at CBC. It's
against their mandate.
Thank God. But once you got there, it stuck, and you were there for like 10 years, right?
Yeah, 9 years. Slocko Klimke.
Right.
He's my hero.
Yep.
And for 9 years, and never changed a word in a script. And then when it got after our 7th season there, and we'd always meet at NatP and discuss what we're going to do. And I said to him, because he was okay for renewing the show, and I said, "Look, here's what I'd like to do. I'd like to do 2 more years, 2 more seasons of the show, and then I want to call it quits. That'd be 300 episodes, 15 years. I'd be turning 65 or 60, I think it was. Something like that. 60, yeah.
Right.
I said, I know an off-ramp when I see one. And he said, let's drop the contract. He gave me a 2-year contract. I mean, that's unheard of, in my world anyway. So I could tell the whole crew, I could tell the whole cast, this is what we're doing. We could tie up storylines and character evolution, all that stuff. It was just, that meant a lot to me.
Well, he was a smart man, is a smart man, Slocko, and he knew that you had an audience. And he, as you say, all this mail, and a membership. Keep your stick on the ice. We'll be back with Steve in a moment. second season of the compelling crime thriller Hidden Assets returns to Super Channel for its exclusive Canadian premiere on Sunday, February 11th at 9 p.m., with each episode also available on Super Channel On Demand. This Irish-Belgian-Canadian co-production is a must-watch for aficionados of crime thrillers. In Season 2 of this Super Channel original, Criminal Asset Bureau's new team lead Claire Wallace finds herself at odds with CTU's Christian de Jong over the Antwerp investigation. And speaking of hidden assets, Quebecer and Brio TV favorite Karine Vanasse is among the Canadians on Season 2 of this drama. And remember, Super Channel, an all-Canadian service, is available via most cable providers across the country, as well as streaming live and on demand with Amazon Prime Video channels, Apple TV Plus, and the Roku platform in Canada. Here he is again, Steve Smith. Family has a cottage up on the Bruce Peninsula, and the plumber up there, it turned out was a big Red Green fan, and he told me that he had membership number 12 or something.
Wow.
Early convert.
Early. Yeah.
And he came to one of your live tapings, and you literally asked who had the earliest membership, and it was him, and he won the prize or something. But, all these people who loved the show and had Red's wardrobe and had a garage full of duct tape and made stuff and sent you stuff, right? That's so unique to have that connection, Steve. I mean, it must have blown you away at times.
Yeah, I really did. And, I became really aware of it when I started touring. I did 4 North American tours, like one-man show, stand up more or less in the Red Green character. And the number of kids that would come to me, like a 10-year-old kid, and this is 2019. And I said, when you were born, the show wasn't even in production. And when I started doing the show, I don't think your dad was born. And they would say to me, this was the show I watched with my father. It was a show the family could, they knew nothing was going to happen, that they're going to cringe. The language is going to be okay, and then whatever we're doing, it was a comfortable show.
It is. And, looking through your book and being reminded of some of the humor, let me start by congratulating you on having the courage and maturity to pick up this book. Whether you bought it for yourself or received it as a gift or borrowed it from a former friend or just reading it in the dark corner of a bookstore, hoping you won't be noticed, it shows you want to be a better person. Anyway, it goes on and on, but a lot of the humor, the husband and wife stuff is really funny and so identifiable. So how much credit goes to Morag, I think?
Oh, tons. Are you kidding me? This year, we're married on Remembrance Day, in 1966. So this year we are 58th anniversary.
Wow. Congrats. That's amazing. Good for you guys. Yeah.
The biggest, she's a great partner. Early on when nothing goes like this, you go up and down and it's a roller coaster. But anyway, one of the lower dips said to me, you just figure out what you want to do and we'll all get behind you. That was freedom,
Wow. Yeah, that is amazing.
Yeah.
And what you wanted to do is create Possum Lodge near Port Asbestos.
And Mercury Creek.
Yeah, no, it's a tremendous legacy. Do you see any connection between the Red Green Show and Letterkenny?
I don't know Letterkenny.
Oh, okay. Wow. Okay. Well,
I know.
I was curious about that. It's a very specific central West Ontario show. The people talk in a cadence that is unique of that area. And it just seems that to me, I kind of see maybe some connection to Red Green there, but you haven't seen it.
Maybe from their side, but I don't know.
Okay. And this idea that that you connected really well with an American fans who don't really know that much else about Canada, so it was more of a universal idea, Red Green, than specific neighborhood, wasn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, a lot of Americans thought we were doing the show in Minnesota. They didn't even know we were from Canada. I mentioned branding before. I'm a big fan of branding. And one of the things I would do is watch an NFL game on TV and see 100,000 people in the stands and think, if there's any Red Green fans in that crowd or potential Red Green, it felt to me like it was an accessible show to a whole lot of people.
Yeah.
That aren't necessarily being represented in LA or New York, because you've got to be really, you have to be obviously smart to get an audience on the, or to get even a broadcaster to agree with you. When you're subtly smart and obviously stupid, they don't accept that. They don't see the intelligence in that, So, anyway.
You see, I got it. I was subtly smart and obviously stupid. That was
that's it. That's fine. That's me. That's my wheelhouse too.
Okay. And now, just besides the shows, you did a feature film with this character, which I went to see in the theater and really laughed. Wow. And a book, and as you mentioned, you had a newspaper column. Do you remember newspapers, Steve?
Yeah, I do remember those. So do you.
Yeah.
I was in like 275 papers. That was a weird one because a cartoonist came to us and wanted to do a Red Green cartoons strip. Those 3-panel things.
Yeah.
And so I said, yeah, sure. So he wanted the script. So I wrote a little thing that would go 3 panels, and he drew the thing, and we submitted it to United Media in New York. At that time, they had the Charlie Brown comic strip, a bunch of other stuff, And they came back and said, we don't like the cartoons, but we like the script. So then it was like, okay. So then we had a meeting with them, and they said, well, how about doing a byline, for these papers? And so I did that, and I ended up, like I said, I think it was 275 papers. I think I did it for a couple of years. And what I was doing was just taking monologues that I'd already written in most cases, and I could just pare them down, fit them in. There was a word limit and so on. And but it was a lot of work, and it wasn't really any money, And I was doing it just for the pride of having a newspaper column, But ultimately, the whole thing, including all the PBS exposure and everything, became advertising for the brand, way more than the financial immediate return of it.
Right.
When I can go, we did sold out shows all over America because they were familiar with me from the PBS exposure.
Yeah, it was part of the culture.
Yeah. That's right.
Yeah. And is the show still seen on Roku, or where do you find the Red Green Show today?
There's a company in Kansas called Answer Media who approached us. Well, we've had a few of them approach us to do digital streaming, and all it ends up being is costs us money to create the technology that they want, the shows in the format they want, and then nothing happens. These people have been the exact opposite of that. They've done gangbusters. We're on a whole bunch of streaming services. If you buy a Samsung TV in Canada, there's a Red Green channel on it.
Wow.
It's just, yeah. And then they flew up and met with my 2 sons who are kind of running the company now. And they just want to amalgamate everything. They want to take over the brand, amalgamate the website with the online store, with the streaming and merchandise. And it's fantastic. And that's what's encouraged us to develop this. And the podcast is part of under their wing now too. But that's what's encouraged us to develop this animated series. It'll keep new content. Will keep everything fresh, feeling fresher.
Yeah, what a great idea! That's fantastic. And just quickly about the character Red himself, were you drawing on anybody in particular? Were there folks? Some of the sayings, I'm pulling for you. We're all in this together. Keep your stick on the ice. Were they specifically from somebody, or?
Well, I did have a blue collar background. At the age of 10, I was helping the milkman. So, we would have that repartee. And when I went to university as a co-op program out of Waterloo. So in the 4 months that I was working, I worked in the maintenance department of a big factory in Galt. So I'm working with these guys. I pick up on how they talk and how they think and their attitudes and so on. So that all went in there, and I never felt above them. I like I respected somebody who could fix something that I would have no idea how to fix. I don't think that's anything to look down on. When my refrigerator's not working, I don't call a nuclear physicist. I call a refrigeration guy.
Right. Yeah. No kidding. There's something about that slogan, Steve. I'm pulling for you. We're all in this together.
Together.
We're in an age where we need to hear those words. Like it's all satire and fun, but it's empathy as well, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a warmth to the show, and that was genuine. Most of those guys there, I should say the core group, I mean, they were with me certainly all of the years at CBC and probably a few years before that. And I can't remember in 300 episodes, I can't remember having an argument or even, somebody speaking loudly. Then it's just everybody was there to do the best they could. They were having fun, we just just good guys. I think if I met somebody who I thought was a great actor, but I thought was a pain in the butt, I would never hire him. I wouldn't hire him for his talent. I was more interested in, I didn't want to hire bad actors either, but number one for me was you got to be part of the team,
Well, I've heard showrunners in the US, different people say to me that they're on their third or fourth show and they basically at that point, they have a no assholes policy.
Yeah.
And that really is everything at that point, right? It makes a difference.
Sure it does.
That's what we're all aiming for. Now, again, let's just mention that you're going to be coming to Hamilton for the Canadian Comedy Hall of Fame. They're having a February 21 to 25, all kinds of activities, lots of live comedy. Sean Majunder's doing one night and Ron James another, and you're going to be awesome. There. Yeah. So it sounds like a great and an overdue celebration of what's a pretty impressive genre for Canadians, isn't it?
I think it's great. And these guys, they create their own material too. And that just doesn't happen on the drama side of things or even on the documentary side. I mean, comedy music is the best comparison, but even with music, you can have 10 hit records and play that, perform them for the rest of your life. You can't do that with comedy. Nobody wants to hear your greatest hits. You can always be something. What are you thinking now? What are you saying now?
Yeah. Back in the day with Abbott and Costello, they could have those 12 vaudeville routines and have a 30-year career. But in the age of TikTok, and you're right, your 8 minutes, your 10 minutes goes immediately.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Let's just get down then to the final three questions. What are you watching on TV now? Is there a show you're streaming that you love?
Well, I find The Office very entertaining and sad all at the same time. I feel so bad for all those characters, even the good ones. The Jim and Pam ones. I feel like, God, they're stuck in somebody's watching that who can totally relate to them, stuck in this horrible office, bureaucratic, arbitrary situation. But it's funny. So, I mean, that's something that I watch. And of course, Swamp People is one of my all-time favorites.
Yeah. Well, just on The Office, and that note, to me, a lot of great shows like Cheers were profoundly sad, really. I mean, these were guys in a bar. There was something else happening a lot of the time. So I think you're right. That's an interesting point.
Yeah, there's an undercurrent there a little bit.
Yeah. Did you stream any of the comedies? Ricky Gervais had that show, Afterlife. I don't know if you saw that.
Yeah, I saw that. That was funny.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty cool. Now, when you were growing up in Toronto, was there a show that you used to rush home from school to see or really love?
The show that I really enjoyed the most is probably the Steve Allen show. I wouldn't rush home. I'd rush home from school to see Wild Bill Hickok because I always felt sorry for Jingles Forts. But
And you used to see that, Steve, on the Commander Tom show. They would show Wild Bill Hickok. Yeah, no, I remember I watched it as well. Commander Tom was one of those shows where they had a host who was a kiddie show, and he would show Roger Ramjet cartoons. But it was long enough that they had room for a 22-minute sitcom. Yeah. And when they ran out of the serial space shows of from the 30s, they'd throw on Police Squad with Broderick Crawford as a kid being very confused. Tenfall. Right. But I'd forgotten that Wild Bill Hickok was part of that mix. There you are. Sorry about that. Yeah.
Guy Madison, Andy Devine. Yeah. So, yeah. I think Steve Allen show, Louis Nye, Bill Dana, Bon Knotts, these guys, it was just silly fun. And I just thought that is so great.
What a golden age, and you're right. Yeah. And now I'm a little bit younger than you, Steve. Not much, but just enough that I don't. The Steve Allen thing, I only saw him a little bit later. But were you able to stay up late enough to see Jack Parr? Because I understand that was kind of one of those shows that made an impact as well.
Yeah, I remember Jack Parr. I had seen Jack Parr, but Johnny Carson to me was so much better. I used to watch Johnny Carson in that afternoon game show. Who do you trust? Maybe it was called.
Oh my goodness! Wow, yeah.
And the couple saying, "Where do you have any traveling in mind?" And they said, "Yes, we're going to California to get a little son." And he says, "What are you going to call him?" It's just. I just thought it seemed so spontaneous to me. And then when he got the Tonight Show, I just thought he was a real combination of a funny guy, but a sincere guy too. So.
Yeah, very funny. All right. Yeah. Finally, what is your all-time favorite TV theme song?
I like The Great American Hero, Walking on Air and all that stuff, but I got to go with Cheers.
Yeah.
Everybody Knows Your Name and all that. I thought that was a pretty cool song.
It's pretty sweet. It was interesting. I don't know if you saw the Emmy Awards the other night, but they had In Memoriam, which was very well done. And they ended it with sort of a sad version of the Friends theme for the picture of Matthew Perry.
Oh, sure, yeah.
And it worked very effectively, I thought. Listen, Steve, it's a pleasure catching up. I'm looking forward to you coming to Hamilton for the Canadian Comedy Hall of Fame. And I'm sure a lot of fans will be there as well with duct tape and be thrilled to see you at that event. And congrats on this animated version of the Red Green Show. That's exciting. Keep me posted, please.
Yeah, I will.
Because you kind of swore at one point, this is it. I've done with Red. I've hung up the hat. I'm not going to do this anymore. So it sounds like you've changed your mind there. You're still finding ways to have fun with that character, right?
Yeah, what I realized was it's not limiting at all. It's a great communicating. It's like saying I'm either going to sit in my room and say things out loud, or I can get on the internet and say things to the whole world, which are the same things. Which would you prefer?
Well, you're right. Now you can do both over Zoom, as you're doing right now. Listen, Steve. Best of everything. Great to see you again. And thank you so much for all the great laughs in so many different styles and media that have made me laugh for a long time. So thanks, buddy.
Thank you, Bill. Take care, my friend.
You too. Take care. Bye-bye. Thanks to our Hall of Fame producer here at Brio TV, Phil Hong. Give it up to BJ Del Conte, Paul Boudra, and all the crispy critters, as well as piano man Stephen Dudley. Many years ago recorded the music you hear on this podcast. Finally, thanks to you, listener. If you enjoyed this conversation, let us know with a like or a comment or a review, anything at all, any message at all. Do it at Apple, do it at Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts. I'm Bill Brio. Thanks for listening.